Good morning. In previous two videos, we have seen the working of steer box and two steering gearboxes we have learned. First is rack and pinion type steering gearbox and second is recirculating ball type steering gearbox. These both steering gearboxes are popular as we know that rack and pinion type is more preferred in car or medium duty vehicles and the medium size passenger cars. Here we have already discussed the working of rack and pinion type steering gearbox, and second is recirculating ball type steering gearbox. This is used in heavy vehicles and large size passenger cars. Okay, these two steering gearboxes we have learned. Now in this lecture, we are going to discuss the worm and gear sector type gearbox, worm and roller type steering gearbox, cam type steering gearbox, and worm and nut type steering gearbox. Okay, as we have studied this recirculating ball type steering gearbox, the steering shaft, the one end of the steering shaft, a worm is there, one end is worm, and on which the balls are circulated or provided, which in contact with this nut, we call it as a ball nut, and the nut, as the steering wheel is rotated, the steering shaft rotates, and this rotary motion of this steering shaft is converted into the up and down motion of this ball nut, and the ball nut is having threads or mesh, and a gear sector, the gears threads are meshes with this ball nut, and the movement of up and down movement of this ball nut will swells the gear sector, and the gear sector is mounted on cross shaft, and this cross shaft is connected with the drop arm, and this swelling motion is transferred. The same thing is for worm and gear type, worm and gear sector type steering gearbox. Okay, in this case what's happened, the gearbox is connected to the worm meshing with the gear sector, and this worm is connected at the end of the steering shaft as usual, and the gear sector carries the cross shaft. Okay, the arrangement of the cross arm and the pitman is same, the steering linkage is same, only thing is the rotary motion of the steering wheel, the rotation of the steering wheel, when the steering wheel turns, the worm also rotates, and the rotary motion of the worm allows to swell the gear sector, and which is mounted on the cross, and with the help of steering linkage it is possible to achieve the angular motion of the wheel. Okay, this is a simple type of worm and gear sector type steering gearbox. Okay, and the next we will see the worm and roller type of gearbox. Okay, in this case, instead of the gear sector, it is replaced by the roller. The roller will act as a gear sector. Okay, here the rotary motion of the steering shaft is given to the worm provided on the steering shaft. The rotary motion of the worm is is provided to the roller, and the roller is meshing with the worm, and this motion, this roller is mounted on the cross shaft, and the cross shaft is again attached to the pitman arm. The remaining arrangement is same. Only thing is, when the worm is rotated, instead of a gear sector, a roller is provided, and the rotary motion of the steering shaft is converted into the swelling motion of the pitman arm or the cross shaft. Okay, and the steering linkage or the steering is achieved with this, is achieved in the gearbox. Main function is to convert the rotary motion into the swelling motion or linear motion. Okay, this is achieved. Why it is called? Because in here the worm is provided at the end of the steering shaft, and instead of a gear sector, a roller is provided. This is the only difference. Then next we will see the cam type steering box. Okay, in this case, at the end of the steering wheel shaft, a part which is called as hourglass roller is mounted, and this is nothing but a mechanical part which is having spiral grooves on its cylindrical surface, and it is with the help of a key which is keyed axially to the end of this steering wheel shaft, and at the one end of the cross shaft, which carries a V-shaped roller, and this V-shaped roller is meshes with the groove in the hourglass roller. Here are the grooves, and the roller is meshes with this grooves provided on the hourglass, and this V-shaped roller is supported on a pin and the two bearings. Okay, and all other arrangement from drop arm and cross shaft arrangement is same, and the roller is forced to turn to the right or left to the as the drop arm swells. Okay, and due to this rotary motion of the steering wheel, the this hourglass is rotated, and this spiral, the mesh, this bearing, this V-shaped roller is fixed in between, is mesh in this hourglass roller, and it is forced to move to the right or left hand side, and because of this roller's movement, which is mounted on the pin, and the pin is mounted, central portion of the pin is supported such that there is rotary motion or swelling motion of the this drop arm. Okay, and one more thing is the roller is raised closer contact with the part, because of here there is eccentricity, and due to which it moves closer to the part. Okay, and the arrangement we call it as a cam type arrangement. Okay, and the whole casing is enclosed at the end of the steering shaft. At the end of the steering shaft, and the whole gears are in a casing. Now we will see the worm and nut type steering gearbox. The worm carries at the end of the steering shaft, there is a worm, and this worm carries a nut which is having internal teeth. When the shaft rotates, the worm rotates, and the worm rotates, the nut moves up and downward motion, and the nut carries a fork linked with a cross shaft, and due to which the swelling movement of the drop arm is achieved due to this arrangement. Okay, this is also a simple type of steering gearbox, worm with nut type. Now we will just see what are the different steering gearboxes we have learned. Okay, first we have seen the rack and pinion type steering gearbox, where the rotary motion is given to the pinion and the rotary motion is converted into sliding motion of the rack. Okay, and after that, in recirculating ball type, as its name indicates, recirculating ball types, there is a steering shaft and the worm in which the ball nuts and steel balls are there, which is in steel balls are in contact with worm and ball nut, and due to these balls, the even the effort required for steering is less, and this is used in heavy vehicles especially. Okay, and the upward and downward motion of the ball nut, which is enmeshed in gear sector, allows the gear sector to rotate, and this swelling motion of the drop arm is achieved. Okay, recirculating ball type. The next is same worm and gear sector. Instead of this ball nut, only the worm is there and gear sector is there, then we can call it as a worm and gear sector steering gearbox. Okay, third and fourth type is worm and roller type gearbox, where instead of a gear sector, it is replaced by the roller. Okay, and all the main primary function or the motions is same. Okay, and the next is cam type arrangement. Here at the steering wheel shaft, instead of a worm, a hourglass roller on which a spiral grooves are provided, and there is a V-shaped roller which is attached at the end of the drop arm, which is meshed in with hourglass roller. As the steering rotates, the motion of the cross shaft and drop arm swelling motion is achieved in this type of steering gearbox. Okay, and the next is worm and nut type steering gearbox, which is also a simple steering gearbox, in which at the one end of the steering shaft there is a worm and the nut is provided in having internal thread which carries internal threaded nut. As the worm is rotated, the nut will move upward and downward motion. At the outer side of the nut there is a fork link with the cross shaft and cross shaft to drop arm, as we know. Okay,